This is the second part of the video that I started putting the porch light and outlet receptacle outside for my chicken coop, and I'm going to do something different than what I originally planned. Still going to put an outlet down there at the bottom of the door that goes outside for the water heater for the chicken drinking water. Along the wall right in here I'm going to put an outlet for benchtop work on the inside, and that's going to be my G.F.I outlet. Instead of putting the G.F.I on the bottom outside like I was originally planning, I'll just put the G.F.I here and then tail off the bottom of that G.F.I for the outside outlet, and it will have protection too. I'm going to measure from the floor to 4 feet to the top of the box. Some people measure 4 feet to the middle of the box, some people to the bottom of the box. I prefer to measure 4 feet to the top of the box. The reason being, when I'm doing drywall, I would prefer to have my cutout in the drywall board on the bottom, so that if I have to make any adjustments, it's easy to make those adjustments easier on the bottom board than it is on the top board. These nail-on boxes are what I'm going to use here. And normally you fur this out 1 or 2 pieces of 2x4 scrap, so there's plenty of room for your trim for your door. But I'm not going to do that because I have no intention of putting any door trim up, so I'm just going to stick this and the switch box on the other side of the door. They're just going to be mounted right on this. And there's a little gauge right here that's about 3/8 of an inch. It works also with a 1/2 inch. You can use that gauge when you feel that catching on the edge of your 2x4. That's the distance that you want to nail it onto the board. That's what that's on there for. Be sure to leave twice as much wire as what you think you really need to go into the box. I'm going to need at least 3 to 4 inches coming out of the box. So it's going to go in from here. I'm going to pull this up out of the staple down here. This wire is pretty stiff because this is outdoor underground wire, so it has really stiff insulation on it, but it's perfect for what I need in here. Doesn't matter. So I'm gonna cut myself off about 7 or 8 inches from the back of the box. I'm gonna cut it off there. And don't have to worry about any sparks or any shocks, because the last thing I'm going to hook up is where the hot wire goes in to the other outlet on the other wall. I'm going to do all the wiring out here first, and then the last thing is to finish it off and put the power to it. So now I'm going to open up a hole in the back here, put this wire inside. Like I said, this is really stiff wire. I'm going to pull this staple out, give me some more room to work. This is not normal wire for indoor use. That's easy to work with. This is pretty tough stuff. Put my staple back on there. I got my way of nipping these things. They make tools for cutting this stuff, but if you don't do it every day, you don't need them. I just control the squeeze by keeping one finger in between the handles, It helps me control how much pressure I have on the jaws that are going to do the cutting. Now I'm going to strip the ends of these wires. I just take my wire cutter and about 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch back, I just nip the plastic a little bit on one side, and then grab it here, control it with my thumb and push that off like that. Some people are used to using a wire stripper. I'm not used to using it. I do it pretty quick this way. And it's good to know how to do it this way in case you can't find your wire stripper sometime. Now this wire is old and the copper is stained a little bit, so I'm going to get a little piece of abrasive of some kind, either a Scotch-Brite pad or a piece of sandpaper. I'll be back in a minute and I'm going to clean these off a little bit. I'm ready to put my outlet on here, and this is a 15 amp G.F.I outlet. I'm using that simply because I'm tight. This is a lot cheaper and I don't really need a 20 amp outlet here, but this is a 20 amp outlet. On the neutral side it has this little sideways clip, and you'll find some 20 amp appliances that require that, and this would be hooked up to a 20 amp breaker naturally, and it would normally be a dedicated load where it doesn't branch off and go to other outlets afterwards, but you can still do it that way, it doesn't matter. But for like an air conditioner or something that needs 20 amps, you want it dedicated. You don't want pulling something off of that, because someone else may plug in a vacuum cleaner into that same outlet and make it trip while the air conditioner is running. So the 20 amp will have this on the side, on the neutral, and the 15 amp doesn't have that on the neutral. It's just straight up and down. When installing a G.F.I outlet, you have on a new outlet, it's going to have one side that has tape on it. If that's the end of your circuit and that's all you're going to have, then you don't use the side with the tape. You leave the tape on there and you only use the top ones that doesn't have any tape on it. That's your power goes into that. If your power went into the bottom where the tape is, then the top wouldn't be protected. So the protection is on the top one, and then after the protection it passes through to the bottom, and then every outlet that you tail on after the bottom one is also protected. And we're allowed to have up to 6, including this one, on one circuit, so we could put this one and 5 more after that and they'll all be protected. So this type has holes in the back that I can put the wire in the hole and then tighten down the screw. I don't mind doing it that way, or I can put a question mark shape on it and then hook it around the screw and tighten it under the screw. I can do it that way. There's room to put 2 different wires on here if I need to. And as long as I have the kind where I can tighten the screw down and it will clamp inside that hole, then I'll use these. There are other ones that don't have the clamp on the screw, like this switch for example. This kind of switch has a hole you can push the wire in right here, but it's held in by a little spring clip that doesn't have a whole lot of contact area on the wire, and you have to stick a miniature screwdriver or something in this hole to release it. I don't use this kind. Now I can for a light switch If my wire is real short and I just don't have room to loop it around a screw and tighten it down, then I might do that. I might make an exception and do that, but I don't like the idea because it's such a small amount of contact area that if there's any serious load on that circuit, it's going to be a hot spot, and I don't want any hot spots inside the switch or the outlets that are going to cause the plastic to start melting and cause metal to start burning and start winding up damaging and destroying the switch, or possibly even cause a fire. So I only use the ones that are this outlet here. If I put the wire in there, I can clamp it down with this screw or loop the wire around the top like I said before. That will be plenty of contact area and it'll be plenty tight. So that's what I'm going to do with this, is put it in that way, put the wire in there and clamp it down with this. So if you don't know which kind you have and you can't tell, then it's better to just loop the wire around the top of the screw, starting from the left side over the top to the right, because you want it to go the same direction that you're tightening the screw. You want your circle of your wire to be going the same direction that you're tightening the screw. The long side of these two slots, the long side is the neutral, that's the white wire, and the black wire, or red in some cases, is going to be on the short side. That's your hot. This top wire that goes to the hot is long. I stripped this one back a little farther, this top one that goes to the hot, because I need to loop this ground around and put a wire nut on it so that I can put a ground on the other side of the other outlet. So I'm going to cut these off, the hot and the neutral, or the line and the neutral, is the right way to say it. I'm going to cut those off a little bit short, a couple inches off. My white wire is the neutral. That's going to go in this where the long slot is. It's also the same side where the silver colored screw is. The way I remember it, silver is as close as you can get to white without painting it with a natural metal color. The gold colored screw, I consider that a colored color. So that goes with the black or a red if you're using red wire. You only use white for neutral, but you can use red or black. Your Romex comes with black, but if you have 12-3 with ground, you're going to have a white wire, a red wire, and a black wire, and the red and the black will be used for hot or line, and the white will be a neutral. I'll do another video later on why you would use 12-3 with ground. So the white wire goes with the silver screw. Push it through that hole and then clamp it down. The bear goes on the green screw on the top, and I leave a pigtail hanging off, and I'll show why I do that in a few minutes. The pigtail is so I can put a wire nut on this other ground wire that goes to the outlet down below. That's going to be down on the floor. And I'm going to put a yellow wire nut on. The yellow ones are generally good for 2 pieces of 12 gauge wire. 3 pieces of wire together, I'll use a red wire nut. If I have to put more than that together, I'll use a gray one, or so on, for the different sizes of wire nuts that are also kind of color coded. The ground is not as important that you have a super tight fit as your neutral and your line wires. And now I fold the wire kind of like a Z shape, down, up, down, or up, down, up, whichever the case is going to be, and that helps me push the receptacle into the box. Push it all the way in, seat it down, and then get the screws tightened down. If you happen to get a used G.F.I outlet, just remember that the ground these days is supposed to be up on top, not on the bottom. It looks better on the bottom for some reason, but I guess because it's just been that way forever. But now the new rule is it needs to be on top. I don't think they're penalizing anybody for that if they're not, but the reason for it is if something metal falls down on something that's plugged in, it's going to hit the ground instead of hitting these 2 wires together and shorting that out and throwing the breaker and burning something here. It'll just hit the ground and bounce and go ahead and finish falling. That's the only reason that I've been told more than 1 or 2 times. A lot of electricians really don't know what the reason is. So that's what I've been told. I'm not a professional electrician. The outlet is installed. Now we'll go outside. First I'm going to put a drill hole where I'm going to mount the box outside for the outlet that's on the other side of the wall here. And then I'll take a saber saw and cut the hole out the rest of the way. I apologize, there's not much light down here, but I think I can get the point across. I'm going to hold this box in place and make sure I'm going to have enough wire. This is where I want to mount the box. I'm going to hold the box on there backwards, as you can see, and I'm going to mark the box just enough to drill a hole from inside, and then I'll finish it on the outside. Where I marked it is right in here. I'm going to drill a hole through the outside over on this right hand corner from this side, upper right hand corner, which will be the upper left hand on the other side of the wall. Yeah, I'm on the outside and I found my hole right here that I just drilled. The old work box, you don't nail that to the wall. It has these wings on the back side. When you tighten the screw, it pulls these wings up against the back side of the wall. So all you need to do is cut the hole out and make sure you don't cut it too big where these tabs won't have some wall to sit on. So it's called old workbox. I'm going to put it up here over my hole. I'm going to trace the outside of the box. Run a line across the top of my hole and down the side, the outside of the hole. I have the hole cut out, and now I'm going to put the box in there. Tighten up these screws, which will pull these wings out, and they'll lock in behind the wall. The box is mounted on the wall. Now I'm going to go inside and push the wire through. Once again, the white wire on the silver screw, black wire on the gold colored screw. Ground wire on the green screw. Outlet installed. I'm not going to record putting the switch in, but I am going to tell a little bit about the switch. If you can see the color on that, both screws are gold colored. That means both of them are considered hot. There's no neutral. And there, of course, is a ground screw. The ground screw is mounted right on the main frame of the switch. And even though it's probably a 1 in a million shot that anyone would ever get shocked from this, I don't see how anyone could possibly get hurt, actually. But if a wire or a contact inside the switch was to break and touch the grounded part of the body, or if a wire inside the switch box where the switch is mounted on the wall were to break loose and come and touch this, then you can't get shocked by that because it'll simply go straight to ground and trip the breaker. So that's one safety feature with having the ground on there. If it's there, I use it. It is the law, but like I said, it's a 1 in a million chance anyone ever gets shocked. Getting killed? Nah, never happened. Now, I'm going to show a couple more switches that I'll do a video on later. These are 3-ways. No, here's the 4-way down here. These are 3-way switches, and I'll do another video on these because there is 2 different color codes on these. You got 2 gold wires or 2 gold screws and 1 black one on your 3-ways, and I'll explain that in more detail. And the 4-way has 2 gold and 2 black, and I'll explain that when I do the 3-ways. I'm going to try to do this without getting in the shadow of the light. It's still winter time here, so it's always getting dark on me before I finish anything. First thing, I'm going to put all of my hot wires together. It's all these black ones. A couple of extra wire nuts up here just to have them handy because I'm standing on a step stool. I'm going to put all of my ground wires together. But I'm not going to put all the white ones together just yet. This is my light fixture that I'm going to use, and I had to cut off a couple little pigtails to put on it. Same little hook end on the wire and put it under the screw facing the direction that it's going to be tightening. And these screws are color coded. The brass colored one, this is an old fixture so you can't see the colors. But this is the brass colored one here, and I've got a black wire on that because it is the hot one, and it goes to the center. Well, I got tape in there to keep the mounting screws from getting lost, but that's the center of it. And then the side, the threaded side where you screw the bulb in, that goes to this white screw here. It was white, or it was silver at one time, and that's the white wire. The black wire that's hot from the source that we're going to tap into inside, all these black wires go together, and so all of them are hot. I don't know if you can see what I'm going to point at here, but it's all wired up together. This wire on top on the left side is the one that goes over the door and down to the outlet. This wire is the one that comes down the wall on the inside, and that's the hot. This wire goes to my switch right down below here, right below where I'm working at. So once again, all the black wires get tied together, and then the white wire coming back up from the switch goes to the black wire and the brass colored screw on the light fixture, and then the white wire from the light fixture that goes to the silver colored screw goes to the other two neutral wires, and then all three of your ground wires go together. And before I finish this video and put it up, I will draw out a little schematic and put that in as a picture. You can freeze the video and save that picture. So now I'm going to push all of these in there and then mount the light on there. It's just once again, just a single pole light switch that has two brass colored screws on it. That's all it has, and then the ground screw. Try to put this on without getting in the light. The switch is ready to mount in the box, and I have to make sure that it says on the bottom when the switch is up, and then the top it'll say off. That's only in the case of a single pole switch, or even a double pole switch. A three-way or a four-way will not say on and off because it could be up or down depending on where the other switch is when the switch is on. Everything outside is finished. Everything works. I cheated and I stuck these wires in the outlet very carefully and tested everything outside, and everything worked. So now all I have to do is open this box up, feed my wire in there, and connect it to the hot in there. I had to take this ground wire that went on this outlet off and cut myself a piece. I was looking for another piece of ground wire. I didn't find any in the garage handy, so I just took a piece of white wire. I had some white. I screwed a wire nut on and then loop this piece around and put it on the ground screw, the green ground screw. Okay, now for the tricky one. Gotta put the hot one on. That's the last one. The black wire. And the reason it's tricky is because I'm cheating. This garage is built out of wood. There's nothing grounded, no metal pipes around me. The concrete is nice and dry. In other words, I did not shut off the power. It's still hot. I do not recommend anybody do it that way unless they have plenty of experience, and they really don't need to be watching this video in that case. That outlet works. Light switch works. Outlet outside. That works. Check the other one. Yep, that works too. See if this outlet works. Look through the crack on the door for that light outside, and it's coming on out there. Yep. Okay, we're in business.